Hello, hello, everyone. Richard Carlton here. I don't know if anyone can see me. Hello, Internet. Are you there? I'm Richard Carlton, creator of FMTraining.tv. Margaret, are we good on your end? Yes?
Yes, we are good. You are free to chatter.
We're chatter. So welcome to FMTraining.tv, o'clock Pacific time. And then every day at this time, we are doing awesome FileMaker training on a wide variety of topics. And so today is a little bit of an audible. So Mr. Watson has some sort of family medical thing that's going on. He's fine. I think it's a dad or a mom or something like that. But he's busy with that. So today we had to switch out with another topic, which is kind of interesting because we're going to kind of kick over potentially a hornet's nest today. And what we do after today will greatly depend upon your involvement. So a lot of you like to kind of lurk, but we need you to not be lurky. We need you to be like chatty and let us know what you think. And if you have questions, because your involvement will guide our actions over the next, say, 30 days in terms of the topics at hand. So before we get there, let's talk about what's going on. You could go to the live stream and check out the upcoming broadcast schedule. Go to FMTraining.tv, press the live tab, and then down below, you're going to see the next 6 records. Those are records out of a FileMaker system. Yes, we eat our own dog food. We use FileMaker as well as build it for other people. And so that is reading data live out of a FileMaker video production database, essentially. And it's showing you the next 6 records of FileMaker information, right? Including images, containers, and everything. We're using the data API. Pretty cool. So that's the upcoming broadcast schedule right there. What's on tap for tomorrow, Margaret, just out of curiosity?
Yep, tomorrow is going to be Execute SQL and FileMaker for Beginners. The wonderful Mr. Kyle Williams is coming back to discuss that with us. So that'll be really fun. And then Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week are basically lessons in logic with Nick Hunter. What to do when you can't have traditional answers to your FileMaker problems and how to think outside of the box, a guide. And then Tuesday is actually going to be Execute DAPI script step in FileMaker with Calvin. So that'll be fun as well.
So yeah, so that's the data API, but we're calling it from within FileMaker because it has some neat benefits to it. It's not something I use that often, so we're going to bring Calvin in to have a conversation about that. Real quick, we always support the people who support the channel. This is a free live stream, but we really support the people who support us. How do they do that? Well, they buy our training bundles, right? We have 2 training bundles. We have a complete bundle, which is the one that generally most people need or should have. We also have kind of this limited video only bundle if you just want to start training videos that we pre-recorded. And so to show our love and appreciation for all of you who have been purchasing and keeping your complete bundles up to date, we're going to be doing, Margaret, if you want to hit the right tab, if you go to the FMTraining.tv, go to the very right, there'll be a button that says certification training.
Yeah.
We have Bill will like this. We have scheduled special high intensity training for FileMaker certification. So special high intensity training for yeah, it's what we call it. Yeah. So we're going to be doing that on January 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, almost guaranteed it will go into the week after that. I'm going to do it every day at 11 o'clock until it's done. I am actually not going to be broadcasting today and tomorrow. I'm actually sitting here working on the curriculum, working on the training guide. So there's a PDF guide that you're going to get. So if you have our complete training bundle, you can come to this event live. You'll be given an invite. We'll be doing it. It'll be a separate event. It's not part of the free live stream. So if you're hearing me say I'm giving you free live stream training on certification, that it's called expectation bias, that Richard gives you everything for free. No bueno, okay? This is 11 o'clock event, Pacific time, and it will be recorded. So if you don't want to attend it live, then you can just watch the recording. That being said, it's only for people who pay money, right? So I hate to be kind of a capitalist like that, but there's only so much free stuff we can give away. Speaking of free stuff, I do want Christian Olsen's here. Hi, Christian. How are you? Christian is obviously working on an updated version of Wolfpack and Wolfpaw and Puck Pack and Rescue Puppy and all sorts of whatever stuff he's doing. So Kyle Williams obviously has a lot of add-ons that you're going to incorporate. So are you coming up and doing another Wolfpack release, Christian? When are you doing that?
That's a very good question. So we were going to try to do it next week, but I reached out to Margs and asked if I could have a little more time because I'm just swamped in customer projects, and I'm also going to try to get a new add-on of myself out as long as an update. So I believe we'll solidify the date shortly, but we're looking the week of the 13th. And so I don't think we picked exactly which day will be which yet, but the 14th, the 15th, and the 16th is what we're looking at. So there might be 2 days for Wolfpack instead of one. And then we're also going to do another follow-up to Wolf's Toolbox that you guys might have remembered from I think it was probably 6-8 weeks ago, maybe longer at this point. But we're looking the week of the 13th to do the next rev for Wolfpack, and we'll get Kyle's add-ons in that release.
So for those of you who missed the memo on this, I had a meeting about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I wasn't clear on this. There's the thing called the Wolfpack, and then there's called the Wolf Toolbox, which is not the same as a Wolfpack. So Wolf's Toolbox, Wolfpack, Wolf Puppies, potty training your wolf puppies. I mean, there's a lot of in there. So yeah. So anyways, it's very exciting. Now that is free. All you people who wanted free, it's in there for free, right? So, but the certification training is a paid event. So we do greatly appreciate it. If you want to purchase and renew your complete FileMaker training bundle, it's how we pay the lights. I got to pay Bill. I got to pay Christian. We got to pay for all this stuff. So somewhere the money has to come from somewhere. So that's how we do that. Or I could do what Bill told me to do. I'm going to do my Galactic Overlord upgrade subscription to the complete bundle, in which case, if you send me a check for $4,999, this week only, it's going to be $49, right? The Galactic Overlord subscription, right? That might be a good one. What do you think, Bill?
I think you're learning software as a service, training as a service, service as a service.
Service as a service. SaaS.
If you can't sell a subscription for something, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to sell a subscription to become a certified developer. It's called the Complete Bundle subscription, Complete Bundle Training Annual. And if you have that, you'll be there. Trust me, I'm putting a lot of work into this. You will pass the test. I'm not going to promise your money back, but I pretty much, unless you're literally phoning it in, not trying, you will pass the test. Larry will be a certified Marine FileMaker developer when we're done. I promise Larry. So yes. So, all right. Take it away, Bill. What are we doing today? And make sure you pump these people for feedback, right? Because we're talking about this new topic. And if no one gives a about Python or any of this other stuff, then we don't have to do it. But if they're interested in it, then maybe we want to come back and do more, right? So.
Yeah, so like you prepped them for, this is very much an off-the-cuff, extemporaneous, conversational type of presentation. And the whole idea is because there's a lot of technologies that are available out there that most people just don't know how to use. They're afraid to wet their toe in it, so to speak, because there's a steep learning curve to a lot of it. And so consequently, they wind up calling us and saying, hey, how do I do X, Y, and Z? And we have these secrets, right, that we can employ, and but they aren't all that complicated. And so the idea here is to give people some ideas about what can be done and teach it to them, because it's really not all that hard. So I'm going to share a screen here, and Margaret, this is
okay,
this is
hang
for...
on. There's a meme. Margaret, I don't know if you could show this. Margaret, you got to show the meme.
Okay. There's a lot of entertaining things happening right now because I just saw a bunch of chihuahuas. I will briefly show the Discord meme, though.
That's all because of our previous discussion there. You know, those are 4 of the miscreants that, you know, I abuse regularly. It's electrified floor. They're kept in a cage, as you can see, because all they do is eat stuff and defecate. So, but anyway.
They have such angry little eyebrows.
Okay. This is why I want Bill back. Bill's got a sense of humor. He does. And,
well, had you not joined, we would have switched the topic to how to automate the tormenting of chihuahuas with FileMaker for fun and profit.
Oh, there we go.
You know, install on-timer script on a servo that rings the doorbell or something like that. You know? So we're going to kind of lead off today with Python. And the reason I chose Python is because it sounds cool. And what we want to do is give something that's easy for people to kind of get into and see how it can be used. But that said, we have a bunch of topics we're going to cover. And Christian, per our discussion, you know, jump in on those if I miss something, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm sure a lot of people listening know what Python is. You know, Python is the up and coming language, right? It does everything. It slices, it dices, it does machine learning, and you know, everything is written in it these days, it seems, including some really major websites. You know, like Instagram, Pinterest. Those are all Python-based websites. And the reason it is so adaptable to our purposes with FileMaker is because it's simple to use at a very high level. So we had a use case come up, what was it, 3 weeks ago, Christian, where somebody needed to rename some files or whatever. And so
yeah,
I got
this is an actual customer of mine who had a bunch of files on his computer and asked me, hey, is there any way for us to use FileMaker to batch rename these, because I'm doing them by hand and it's horrible.
Right. And so the batch renaming we'll get to, but let's just talk about how easy Python is to use for something like that. And so let me just pop a terminal here, make this big so everybody can see it. And so I'm gonna turn on Python. So now I'm in my Python editor, my IDE, and so we can just program it right here. So we're gonna say import OS. Okay, so what that does is it brings in a Python library for the operating system control. This lets your Python program go out and affect things on your system. And so the program that we would need for Christian's purpose is os.rename and then source file and destination file. That's it. Of course, it throws an error because it's not real. You know, there's no source file or destination file. So in 2 lines, we can accomplish what that customer needed instantly. In fact, it's faster than any other manipulation I could think of. The kicker is, how do you trigger that from inside FileMaker? And that's where the magic comes in. You need to know a few tricks. But everything in Python seems to be that simple. If you look at Django, which is a web framework written in Python, it allows rapid deployment of beautiful websites. You can use all the popular web text with it. It's secure, and you can integrate it to FileMaker really, really quickly. So Python, if you're going to learn one language to go with your FileMaker toolbox, Python would be it in my book. So let's jump out of here, and let's talk about how we actually go from A to B. And I'm going to try to monitor the Discord thing in case somebody asks a question. So if I miss something, Margaret, holler. Just replace with random program. Sorry, I'm reading the comments here.
Well, we also have YouTube and Twitch. Margaret, are you going to monitor all those?
I'm looking at all of them. Yep. People are excited to hear about Python because one guy had a funny comment. He said, I might never use it, but I need to know how to talk about it so developers I interact with will take me seriously.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's more truth to that than not, but yeah. So
and Bill, real quick, and this might be a dumb question, but when you opened up Terminal there and you called for Python, did you have to, before you got to that point, have something installed in your computer so it knows what it is? Or does Terminal just... Go ahead.
Yes and no. Yes and no. So current OS X comes with Python 3.6 or 3.8, I think. You can download different versions, though, using either a package manager or direct from the python.org website that's shown on the screen. And then that you can specify which version you jump into. Now, development with Python is more complex than I'm making it sound. I mean, you want to encapsulate everything in a virtual environment and a bunch of other stuff. I'm not going that far down the rabbit hole today, but suffice it to say, it's a one-click install.
Okay, so you hear what he said. I'm not going to go down through it today, okay? That is everyone's clue to buzz or to not to buzz, right? Or kiss my bill, never come back, okay?
Hey, there's a buzz. All right. Nothing like hometown crowd right there. So continuing with the Python, you know, if you're running Linux, I believe it comes pre-installed on Ubuntu, whatever the LTS edition is. I don't know if Windows comes with Python, but again, you just go into the python.org website that downloads, and here you go. You can go to the All Releases tab, and there they are. You just click it, and boom, install it. One key, if you're going to start playing with Python, because I know you guys won't wait for me, you'll just start doing this. When you install this, make sure you click the box to add it to your path. And that's that's technical lingo for making it callable anywhere on your system. Okay, that's the easiest way I can say that. But if you put Python in, just go to Udemy, buy a cheap Python course, or get on Amazon, buy a cheap book, to learn the basics. In fact, the one I learned on, you actually design like a multi-user dungeon type game. It was very nerdy and threw me back to the Telnet mud days of my youth. And there's other ones that are free on the internet as well. So there's no reason that you can't learn Python easily. All right, let's go on to how we might roll Python into FileMaker. And there's a couple different ways. One of the more complex ways is going to be to trigger a shell script from FileMaker using send event or another technology, using Apple Automator, those types of technologies. Those are pretty technical, and you can figure it out if you work hard at it, but we may or may not demo that one because there's an easier way. And the easier way is to use something called CGI. It's a Common Gateway Interface. And CGI, you might see them as CGI-bin binary. And they have kind of a bad rep because there's some security issues with them if they're public facing, because then Johnny Malactor can hit them and exploit them and do all kinds of bad things. But in the FileMaker realm, if you run your CGI files on a protected server inside your network, there's really no security threat if you have proper east-west security constraints in place. And so CGI files are a really easy way to do this because you can call it two ways with FileMaker. And I'm going to put something on screen here. This is an example of a FileMaker script that I wrote, 5 or 6 years ago, that integrates a FileMaker CRM that we wrote with a VoIP provider called FacetPhone. And FacetPhone is one that has displayed several times at DevCon. In fact, I was their test case for this and kind of springboarded them into this. And hopefully they're doing really well with it. But the key line is right here, line 20. So I put a web viewer on a layout. I set the web viewer with the URL of my CGI file. And the CGI file goes to their server and returns the caller ID of the number that called in. And then I grab the layout object attribute to get the number, I filter it, and then I do a find. Really straightforward way to figure out who's calling you. So this type of call is really fast. You can use the web viewer method. You could also do insert from URL, which does basically the same thing without the web viewer. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, insert from URL was not around when I wrote this.
Insert from URL is with the curl options is new as of 16 or 17. Yeah,
we wrote this in 15, I believe. So anyway, there's a bunch of ways to skin the cat. But you can have a CGI file that does anything. So let's talk about that example that Christian had where he had a client that needs umpteen thousand files renamed. Well, you write a CGI file that just loops through and reads the names out of a text file that's supplied through FileMaker container or whatever method, and it just executes automatically. You could run it as a console app even. And those types of things really extend the power of FileMaker because you're also getting it out of the FileMaker envelope, meaning it's not, whatever apps you write are outside of the overhead that FileMaker carries in and of itself. So it's much quicker to do large operations like that. Like if you had to search gigabytes of text, I would not do it in FileMaker. I would do it in, a Python or a console app. So that's really what the power of these things are. It lets you manipulate the OS. It lets you do anything. You can do machine learning libraries. In fact, let me go back to my browser here. You can do, I just did a basic Google search. You can see how much resources come up instantly on how to do AI and ML with Python. I mean, that's the language of ML for the most part. And you don't have to have a master's in computer science to write this stuff. Most of it is, 20, 30 lines, and it handles itself. or you access existing libraries where the masters in computer science did the heavy lifting already. So it really allows you to boost your productivity and your speed and your extensibility by just learning some basic stuff and how to wire it together. What questions on Python have we hit? Oh, there's your Learn Python.
So far, you're asking the question?
Yeah, has anybody got questions on Python?
Not yet. They say you're a good presenter, and they like torturing chihuahuas. So that's.
I am a good presenter, so I appreciate you being able to see that. In fact, I'm probably a better presenter than a programmer, but you know, we all got our talents, right? So, well, then let's move on to the next one, okay? And so the next one I'm going to talk about. Let me go to my list. Yeah, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go to Zojo. Zojo, Xojo, for all you spelling challenged people. Zojo is a cross-platform software development suite. We use it for a number of things, and you can do whole apps in it, but it's not for the faint of heart. Okay, this is one of those tools where if you know it, you've got a powerful tool in the toolbox, but you're going to have to work to learn it. And the neat thing about it is it lets you put together UI as well as functionality all in one workspace across every platform. Linux, Windows, Mac, console apps, web apps, iOS, and they're just coming out with Android. So you can develop for iOS and Android all at the same time. Now, this is not a Zojo commercial. In fact, I don't recommend Zojo for most applications because of the learning curve as well as the overhead of the apps. But in specific instances, it can be a really powerful tool. And I've got an example for you. This is an e-commerce website written in Zojo. And the reason this is cool is because it integrates with FileMaker. It reads all these pictures and the text that goes with them right from a FileMaker database. And we can log in to a FileMaker database from this third-party web app. I didn't have to know any kind of PHP or Python or anything else. I just knew the Zojo. And we do this by using a Zojo-based API. So the API is something that allows us to bridge the gap between the wide, wonderful world of web and the sometimes, if not always, difficult to use custom web publishing interface of FileMaker and FileMaker Server. But you can certainly do both. But this thing does everything. It has, the typical e-commerce settings. Hey, look, there's my test address. Send me something. Send money. You can do actual purchases. And this particular client, they use a credit system that members may have or not have. So it's a mixture of cash as well as credits. And so it's a really complex integration. And so the question is asked, well, how come, you guys didn't just use an existing e-commerce, like ZenCart or WooCommerce or something? And the reason is there's no way to integrate that stuff easily with FileMaker or alter the UI and the process flows to work with the client-specific business logic. And so that's where a tool like Zojo really comes in handy.
So I think you answered my question, Bill. So basically, Zojo's giving you kind of the web presence with using the API as a easy way of communicating back to the FileMaker database?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, the API is something that anybody can get for free. Tim Dietrich was a big guy at FileMaker for a while, and then he left. He developed a product called Allo, which is a Zojo-written framework that provides an instant API. And we use that extensively for that site that I showed you to talk back and forth to FileMaker through the XM API, or what do you call it, the XML interface. I forget what they call it. Oh, and Hal Gumbert is another one. I don't know if you guys know Hal, but he has this place called Camp Software, and he runs a product called XFM, I think.
Is that it was down there? I thought it was the second one down there on the last page. There, is that him right there? Camp software, is this it?
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, if you're interested in this, take a look at Hal's stuff too, because we use both. We use Allo, and we also use XFM, I think is what Hal calls it, to talk back and forth. And so I tell my Zojo guy, I say, hey, I need an endpoint to do this, like return a contact record. He does his Zojo magic and, shakes a stick over the computer. Next thing I know, I get a JSON package back with the info I need. And it's phenomenal. It's fast and it skirts around the DAPI interface if you have a high volume application that you don't want to pay for. So at least until they plug that hole.
Yeah, well, so that it's using the XML gateway. Is that what it's using?
Yeah.
So what? One more time. What is this? It's a create an endpoint to Zojo.
Yeah. So you use
product here. What's the name of this product? The Camp one.
Well, at Camp Software, I believe it's called XFM. Or Xanadu is the current iteration of it. So okay. Xanadu is the web framework. FM dump also allows you to take a FileMaker table and dump it to SQL really quick. We use that one. And then, we use Tim. I must have deleted it. We use Tim's Allo as the framework for our API.
Okay.
And so what I just said encompasses 2 years of development. I mean, this is not something you're going to do on a weekend, but it's a huge tool. I cannot say that enough. So that's another thing at your disposal. And Zojo does another thing which makes console applications. So a console application looks like just a blank terminal window while it's running, but it's doing heavy lifting in the background. And you can do all kinds of ancillary tech with it, whether it's Python or PHP or whatnot, whatever you need, and the console app can manage it. And so Zojo is definitely worth putting in your toolbox if you need that type of extensibility. All right, next thing on the list, Christian, we're going to talk about HID devices. So when I say HID, I'm talking about human input device. And so in the FileMaker universe, it might be a barcode scanner. And
I'm glad you clarified that because I had no idea what that meant.
An HID, human input device. So it's a peripheral. Okay, so you can see like this thing is this little barcode scanner jobby or this printer or whatever it might be. There's 1,000 different things. And what it does is it has onboard hardware and software to accomplish the task, in this case, reading a barcode. But what it does is it spits it back to FileMaker in the form of text. Now, my personal use with these has been barcode readers and scales, because we use it in a shipping solution as well as like inventory and say like a POS solution. And the reason that's important is because FileMaker doesn't have any native way of bringing this data in except as text. You can't suck in a blob, a binary file, and read it in FileMaker and turn it into usable information.
This is great. This is the scanners I think I talked to you about earlier in the year because I have a client who wants to start using more sophisticated barcodes.
Yeah, and most of these scanners will do any of the umpteen 900 different types of barcodes. In fact, if you have Christian MBS, Christian Schmidt's his plugin, you have a plugin right there that can do all kinds of different barcodes, anywhere from QR codes to your typical 11 or 12 line whatever. And any of these devices can read it because the magic is in the hardware. And the end result is a line of text, whatever it reads. Another big one is going to be a credit card reader. And so what you're looking at here are these little swipey jobs, right? You swipe it and it's, instead of magnetic gobbledygook or machine language or however it's on there, you get a string of text that you can parse and turn into a credit card charge. So HID devices open the FileMaker universe exponentially. I mean, you can do all kinds of things with HID. Really, the sky is the limit. And if you start mixing and matching your tech, you can take HID and Zojo and create a complete building security system with RFID locks for all your people. I mean, and it's cheap. We're talking like $5 a integration. The amount of power that these types of things give your FileMaker development cannot be overstated. In fact, we are actually looking at putting in one client's place they have a 550-acre property where they need extensive physical security. We're actually looking at that very integration. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, and I know we've only been talking for about 20 minutes now, but let's kind of go back and try to get the 20,000-foot view here. We've talked about API, and an API is a automated programming interface. It allows input from one request to get specified output across a broad range of uses. APIs are everywhere. You guys might have heard the term RESTful API. If you don't know what that is, you should do a quick Google search, like what is a REST API, because you need to know. And there's a great white paper. Well, this might be it right here. Look at that. There's a great white paper that talks about it, and it tells you how to write one, because you want your API to be consistent and secure and predictable. And it's not something that, like I said, you're going to write in a day. It's something that you're going to develop over a course of months and years. And it allows you to let your FileMaker be accessed by the web. Let's say it's your own website, like the one that I showed you. Or if you have some type of software as a service product, it allows the public to access your FileMaker through an API. So you get to scale your FileMaker sale without scaling your DAPI budget. Does that make sense? I'm expecting somebody to say yes.
Yes.
We're muted, but yes.
Okay. Kind of like me the other week where everybody's talking at me and I just keep on motoring.
Oh, I have a question actually before you continue the motor.
All right.
Can you do AirTags for business?
AirTag. What is an AirTag?
It's the tile, the little tile things that you can you put on your keys and stuff like that. And so the answers to that is yes. And I want to I'll get another.
Didn't you do something with that years ago, Richard, with the bunnies?
Yeah, we were scanning the rabbits. There's a video of me doing the geo tracking and stuff like that, and I had a rabbit going around the backyard, and I was scanning for it, kind of like the Alien. If you see the second Alien movie where the aliens kill all the Marines, right? And they have this motion tracker, so it senses it's coming, but you don't see it. It makes this high-pitched whining sound, and it's everyone in the movie theater. Yeah, so basically, AirTags. Oh, it's scary. I would hate to see the Aliens movie, any of those, in the theater with the lights off. There's no way. So the AirTags is where it's like a little Bluetooth transponder, self-contained with a little battery in them typically. I'm just going to, real quick, I'll spend a moment here on this. Their tile is the one I use personally. I put it on all my keys. I put it on my wallet. I've even, they go everywhere, right? And they last about a year, and you have to change the battery. The shrinkage in the world of business and inventory and things like that, there's the idea of inventory loss control, right? Like if you have a bunch of expensive items like iPhones and things like that that are $400, $500, $800, you don't want your staff taking the 5-finger discount, right? And I'm waving my hand in the video here a little bit, Margaret, but the 5-finger discount, you don't want them taking them home and hey, where'd that go, right? And so there's a company in the building next door. I'm in our Santa Clara office. Next to the building next door, it's like Roomba. Roomba, it's an Indian company. It's not the same as the Roomba droids, different company. And they are making tags that are so small and light and cuddly, RFID tags. And you can have this stuff talk to FileMaker, but they're actually putting it in each of Apple is building these tags into each of the boxes of wireless tags. So they can track if one of the boxes magically wanders off. All right.
Yeah. So I understand what you're talking about there.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. They're becoming smaller and lighter and faster. And to the point they're so prolific that they're putting them in each cardboard box. And when you throw the cardboard box away, you throw away that tag. But it was so inexpensive to Apple that they didn't care, right? That makes sense. So
probably pretty much negates shrinkage, employee shrinkage anyway.
I would think so. Yeah, it negates the shrinkage almost entirely. And I think that, you know, it just from putting the fear of God in everyone, don't steal an iPhone or don't steal whatever. You know, so trying to steal a car these days with all the GPS and you steal a car, you better steal an old car or in the middle of the desert where there's no, you know, Wi-Fi, because all the cars these days will they tell everyone where you're at.
Well, then the answer then for Margaret is, yeah, of course it can do it, because the readers, when whoever walks by with the iPhone or whatever, the reader reads it and kicks back an event to the monitoring program. So yeah, that would be simple, because you're just talking about an API integration there.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, absolutely. I just going to point out that the business next door, they're making them so small now that these AirTag ones are like, you know, like the size of a silver dollar or something small. Maybe a quarter would be a small one, but yeah, they're so small now that they're being buried in the cardboard walls of the boxes being made for Apple. That's how small they are.
Cool.
All right.
So that kind of hits APIs again. I do want to talk briefly about JavaScript. Most of us have some exposure to JavaScript. We may not know it's JavaScript, but it is. In fact, Christian or Richard, don't we have somebody who did some really cool stuff with JavaScript?
Well, Calvin's done some pretty decent stuff with JavaScript in terms of our calendar. Jonathan Ray has come and presented on a handful of things. I know I've used some of his tools.
And yes, Kyle, I was getting to you. Kyle's over there on Discord going, me.
Kyle Williams.
Ah! All right,
I was trying to tee it up.
All right, there we go.
I don't know if any, I'm sure other engineers at RCC are using it. Those are the two that come to my mind. I'm not sure if you were thinking of a specific thing.
No, I just, you know, it's a widespread technology, but most people don't understand how easy it is to use in a web viewer, where you can make your web viewer do some crazy stuff with JavaScript, or in an actual deployed website. We do some pretty heavy lifting with JavaScript. So you can do a lot of your data munching before you send it off to FileMaker or whatnot in your deployed website application. So JavaScript is another technology that it pays time to at least dip your toe in. You don't have to become, you know, some top shelf programmer in it, but to understand how to use it and to access some of the existing things in the library, it not only lets you do some cool stuff, but it gives you access to tools that you would otherwise have to figure out a way to create from scratch, or use mundane looking tools in HTML. So,
or just be screwed. I mean, to me, the thing, some people I feel like are using JavaScript now to solve every problem, but there are certain things that there isn't really a great way to solve it in FileMaker, no way, unless you use it. So to me, it's a really specialized tool that solves some pretty unique quandaries that we'd run into.
Yeah, and you actually touched on another point that deserves a bit of airtime by itself, and that is that when people get really good at a particular technique, say JavaScript, everything starts to look like a JavaScript problem. And it's the old, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail type of thing. Like for me, it's Python and Django for web stuff, or Zojo. You know, I tend to stick with those two, and I use JavaScript when I have to suffer through it. I'm not a JavaScript person, but for a lot of people, it is awesome. And you know, if that's what you're comfortable with, if that's what you know the best, use it. You know, if it does the job, right?
Absolutely.
But again, you know, in JavaScript application, you're limited to either doing it in FileMaker in a web viewer, or, you know, on the web itself. It's not a standalone technology that you're going to run in a terminal app, you know, from a remotely called file. It's probably not the best solution for that. So you need several different tools in your toolbox. What else? And I guess that's it on my list today. I didn't talk as much about console apps as I thought I would, because getting the gist of a good console app across in this format is kind of tough. But I'm going to try once more, because I think people need to know what they can do.
Well, and, you know, and in fairness, today, Bill, you were just going to kind of come in and cover a number of topics. The conversation's been a little lighter than I think you anticipated. One thing I would love to hear from our members is, you know, Bill's covered a number of different things in here, and we'd like to have him back if you guys are entertained. Maybe other than just Buzz, you guys could throw out some of the topics you'd like to see him come back for. I know I would particularly love to see you come back and actually talk more about Python. The little bit that you showed me really interested me.
I'm voting for Python because it's not been well covered most places. So, anyone else voting for Python? Scott Kane.
Two votes on YouTube.
You can vote for more than one thing.
Also, there was a buzz for something about Claret's history, so people want the history.
That's Richard.
Yeah, people want to hear about the history of Claret, which probably isn't necessarily
story time.
Yeah, they like story time. Well, tell the stories is kind of fun. So, by the way, before we all get too separated from what we're doing, Bill made reference earlier. I did not realize that Bill is an accomplished author. Margaret, did you check your Slack there? What I said?
I am.
Yeah, you're an accomplished author. We found the book on Amazon that says this is good stuff. So, yeah, that's why we have fun here. People are like, oh, you have too much fun. I want more of a serious training environment. Okay, well, then pay for the complete bundle, and you'll have less jokes and more serious training.
Yeah, and for a real training, like if you guys really want to do, like learn how to do an API, I will take you through and show you that, but that's probably not going to be a 1 hour freebie. That's a need to dedicate some time to it, and it's you know, several sessions. So
they're in the joint conversation.
Chihuahuas, nice.
Bill Kaplan's in the corner
for fun and profit.
Just so people can see it. There you go. So yeah, we can certainly do that kind of thing. We've already talked about putting together a Python seminar because we figured people would be pretty responsive to that. So we've already started doing the groundwork, and I'm actually using Christian's use case as one of the examples, you know, how to rename 1,000 files using Python and FileMaker. And of course, I'm gonna have to write a Python script to make 1,000 blank files that I can rename. So that might be another one. So we'll put that
on top of Python.
Guys. Yeah, really, why not? And they're both actuated by a FileMaker button.
Could you do 3 or 4 Python kind of basic sessions, right, for us, spread over a month or say?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the use cases we want to get into, okay? Because there's a few that we've touched on using multiple technologies today, and that is the outside of FileMaker OS level type manipulation, renaming files, copying files, uploading files, that kind of stuff.
That would be my vote. That would be my vote.
So, actually,
Bill, one thing I wanted to highlight on there, you said it at the very beginning, but I'm not sure if people really fully grasp this and how quick and powerful it is when you're using it versus FileMaker or something else. And it's kind of an odd example, but last year I had a customer who analyzed large amounts of data, and we had about 350 million records in the database. And to accompany these, he had MP3 files that were a few seconds or a few minutes from 3 different sites over 3 years. There was thousands, if not tens of thousands of these MP3s he sent to me. And in order to import these into FileMaker, I needed to get them all into one folder so I could do a single import rather than hundreds of them. And so not knowing how to use Python or some of the terminal commands, I literally just opened the folders up and would try to drag these from one folder to another to another.
Holy
and
cow.
I hit limitations in the OS. I would do a Command A, you know, to select everything and then just try to drag them all. And my Mac would start having a really hard time. I mentioned this to another engineer, and she says, don't do it that way. And went and helped me write a terminal command, or I don't know if it was Python, and it took a half a second.
Yeah.
And so when you're leveraging that, you're really leveraging the power of your machine in a way that FileMaker doesn't.
Yeah, in fact, for that particular use case, I mean, that's a one-line Unix command on a Mac. I mean, that's not even a Python program. So unless you're doing a bunch of renaming, but again, we could do like some text searching, you know, like if you have a huge body of text you need to search, you know, there's really easy ways to do that. And you know, the use cases are innumerable, and we could talk all day about different things we can do. But the web integration is really powerful as well. So maybe what we should do is, like, the first one is how to set up your Python IDE and get your machine ready to run Python, because there's some things you want to do to make sure you don't mix and match parts of your system with whatever you're working on. And I mentioned it earlier about doing it in doing your Python dev in an integrated development environment, or a virtual environment is what it's most likely called, or most often called. And that keeps everything isolated and controlled from the changes in the rest of your system. And then the next time we could do how to actuate, OS level commands in programs from FileMaker. So doing like the rename or the creation of files or whatnot, or an upload, like if you wanted to dump a backup out of FileMaker and upload it to your Dropbox or whatever, that's really easy to do in Python. So you could essentially make a custom backup script with Python that would allow you to execute your Dropbox uploads without having to buy any software. I forget the one that we use in our server deployments, but it's pre-made software. Well, we could write the same thing in Python and fire it from a CNC server. So there's a lot. I
really like that idea, Bill, of an initial day of like basically in the kiddies pool, because our audience is a wide range. We probably have people in here that are very proficient with Python. We have probably others who have tinkered with it or heard the name. And we very well had some people at the beginning of the session that thought we were going to start talking about snakes. So I know that it would be useful even for me to kind of see what do you got to do? What are the precursors to get to the point where you can start playing with this and not harm yourself, and like get to a point where someone go watch, like you said, one of those Udemy videos or something to kind of experiment with it. And I think that's going to get more engagement for that second video or that second presentation.
Yeah,
people have a better idea of what questions to ask.
Yeah, I mean, taking people step by step from downloading Python to making FileMaker do something with it would be a good approach. Most of the Udemy courses or even the books, the use cases for Python are good. I mean, it teaches you how to print, and it teaches looping and if logics and all that stuff. But what it doesn't do is tell you how to hook it up to a database and make it do something actually productive. And if we can do that, if we can get people using FileMaker and Python in conjunction, that basic Python tutorial that they can get anywhere now becomes a tool in the arsenal. And a quick Google search gives them the capability because they can hook it to their database now. And that's where the power comes, not from being able to say hello world in Python,
Yeah.
So.
My suggestion, Bill, on that, just to even bring this even to a finer point, would be get your virtual environment set up. And then if we need to spend half a day or whatever we need to spend, the ability to call Python and send like 2 + 2 as a string, and Python adds it and just returns it, right? That to establish the two-way communication back and forth, right?
Yeah, sure.
Richard, this reminds me of the building an add-on where we built a box, and it seemed like that actually got far more engagement and got people more involved with add-ons afterwards. Yeah,
because what happened with Christian on that, Bill, is that he built, Christian felt it was stupid to go that slow with it, but everyone was following along, right? And we actually had people, okay, step 1, breathe in, step 2, put your hand here, step 3, build a box, press, and literally by the time it was done, it was the highest rated live streams we'd ever done because everyone got to participate. Although it's kind of hard with their own IDE, but very simple. Step 1, step 2. Once you can pass communication back and forth, then it's wide open, right? Because now you can pass it anything and it can get something back. So
right.
And David Angel and others will be happy that Bill is more of a Windows user. Aren't you, Bill? Aren't you one of our Windows people?
I use the Windows machines in my setup as entertainment devices for the Chihuahuas.
Oh, well, never mind. Yeah, we're always being a little rude to our Windows users.
Right before you electrified the floor. That was great.
It's a touch screen, and I have a laser pointer just move randomly around the screen. So it's
Day 4 will be Chihuahua torture.
Chihuahua tormentation, tormenting, or however you say it. So I did have another idea of something we could do, and it's actually a really useful program, and it might kind of bring things together, and that is we can do the Python integration, of course, but we can also combine it with a web scraper that we could do in maybe JavaScript. Ooh. And then pull all that into FileMaker and make some use of it, Your FileMaker wants to scan for news archives about how awesome of a presenter Bill Caplis is. Well, it can go out and hit Fox News or whatever and download their top list of things and grep it for Bill Caplis. And if it hits, it passes the link back to FileMaker, something like that.
Yep.
So
that would be cool.
All this stuff needs to be functional because, like Ruben just posted in the Discord chat, anybody can do hello world. Anybody can do the basic string manipulation stuff, but it takes some actual capability to save your organization money by using Python or to get a real world result. And that's really what we're here for. I mean,
I know at least for myself, that's all. Whenever I've had to learn something after FileMaker, it's been like, oh, sure, I should learn JavaScript or JSON or SQL. But then I had that one use case, and I would sit up at night trying to learn this thing out because now all of a sudden I'm motivated. Now this thing has dollar bills, dollar signs associated with it, and dollar signs are a great way to motivate this wolf.
Sure, and that's really what we do, right? I mean, it sounds just mercenary as hell, but the real answer is we're here to provide solutions, and we are paid for that knowledge. Whether it's us at RCC or the folks out in the world learning this for their own use, they're doing it to make money or to make their organization's life easier. And if we forget that in our examples and teaching this, then we're really doing a disservice. So
Yep. All right, cool. Well, we will look at the schedule and we'll see if we can get Bill back on board. And nothing excessively crazy, but kind of step through some stuff. And and then of course Bill's got a sense of humor. We do greatly appreciate that. The Chihuahua stuff is always funny. All right, so we're kind of landing it here. Other questions, Margaret?
We got one last comment from Lynn. It's more like a support. Like, vote for a session how to use Python to replace FileMaker SQL imports, which can be slow. Note, I do not mean FMSQL, but I'm using real SQL in the import dialog box. Would like to use Python instead. The SQL is built and can be reused. The FileMaker import can be slow for thousands of records.
Okay, so that was a lot, and you lost me at SQL, I think.
I can copy and paste it into Discord. Yeah, give me a moment. Boop.
So this is Lynn from Austin, right?
Yes.
Welcome, Lynn. Yep. Bill's got a hell of a sense of humor. We're just trying to
Python only text-based. So Ruben just asked a good question on the Discord. He says, is Python only text-based, or are there also libraries to do some graphic manipulation on a palette? The answer is there is graphic libraries. A couple of them is going to be tkinter. Most people just call it Kinter. The other one is called PyQt, and I'll put this in the Discord.
Okay.
And there's stuff out there that you can design a graphic UI just like you would, using any number of GUI tools, and then it will generate the Python file for you. And that's how PyQt works. That's the one I've used. I've never used Kinter, but I hear it's very similar. So, cool. Good question.
All right, well, yeah,
okay. Did you see the one question from Lynn? Did we manage to resolve this?
Well, she had a vote.
I have not seen that. Did you put that on Slack? Or
I put it in
Discord.
Right above where you put your box, where you said I should write the book.
Oh, okay. So, Lynn Stabino, vote for a session on how to use Python to replace FileMaker SQL imports, which can be slow. Note, I do not mean FMSQL, but I am using real SQL in the import dialog box. So like, Lynn, are you using it as an ODBC data source? Is that what we're talking about?
I'm assuming that's what it is.
And the SQL is built and can be reused. FileMaker import can be slow for thousands of records. Okay, so here's one thing we could try for Lynn. We know the format of the SQL that we want to bring in. So if we used like Hal Gumbert's FM dump program to, actually, I think it goes the other way. Yeah, I think you could use that to pull it in. The other option would be to pull it in as text, like in a CSV, and that might be faster than using the onboard import tool. That's something that we would want to play with, and try some different things. But I don't know that Python is going to get you that unless you use it to make the data extraction call from SQL to begin with and bring it in through your CGI file or whatnot as text and then parse the text. But if you're talking large volumes of data, I'm not sure that would be much faster. What do you think, Christian?
I'm not sure. That's a little bit.
Let me jump in here. So the import dialog, right? The import process in FileMaker, it is what it is. There's no way to really bypass that, right? The trick is if SQL and this is what Bill's getting at. Bill said this. I'm going to say what Bill said. I'll say it differently. Is that if there's a bunch of processing that's going on before the actual suckage of the data. So FileMaker does this sucking and it sucks it in and it puts it in the table for us and saves it in its file structure. That part, you can't get away from it. It only has one speed. It is whatever the speed of your computer is. However, if there's a bunch of processing before that happens, maybe you can process it differently. You can defer the processing. You can maybe have Python do the processing or something else do the processing. But if you're, I think what Lynn is talking about is doing an SQL, you're importing data. We frequently will do this with FileMaker, because FileMaker, when you're trying to interact with SQL live in real time across an ODBC connection, can be kind of slow. One of the techniques is to bring all the data down, mirror the data down out of FileMaker or out of SQL and into FileMaker, and then you interact with it, then you synchronize the two. But that import, that two-way ESS thing that goes on, none of that stuff's very fast. And so Lynn is definitely seeing that. Lynn, if you could give us some screenshots, give us a little bit more background feedback on what you're doing, email your request to, someone mute yourself, please. Email your request to support@RC Consulting, and that way we can pass it on to Bill or whoever. They can take a look at it. And that way we can answer the question more specifically. But yeah, generally doing imports out of ODBC systems is slower. It's just not something that FileMaker's fast at. So.
We got one other real minor question for Bill, based on what I just saw in Discord. You guys are mentioning using Visual Studio to write Python. Bill, does Visual Studio have the Python extension out of the box, or is that something you downloaded additionally?
It's been a minute since I set it up. I'm pretty sure I had to download it to get it to work, but there's 100 different code editors you can use. Like a really popular one in Python is one called PyCharm, and that one is a really powerful Python editor. But I use Visual Studio for everything because I'm lazy and don't want to learn another one. And so it's really laziness, but you can only learn so much, and I'm getting old. So.
I think that's honest there.
All right, cool. Kyle says faster to work with smaller blocks a day than one huge block. Yeah, so that came up the other day. Actually, on the FileMaker forum, people were talking about, I want to be able to import data, and I need it to go faster, and and blah blah blah. Although, just so you know, importing records in the FileMaker, say if you want 1,000 records and you were going to create them, it's faster to actually import 1,000 records in the FileMaker than it is to have a looping script that creates 1,000 records. So
demonstrably, and then if you do the import on the server.
I was just gonna say, go PSOS to do the import, and you're gonna save some time there.
I have an archive process I've been working on all morning. I built it for my client. I was working on it today, but that's exactly it. We take their entire database and move it to an archive, and running that locally, I forget, it's hours. But when we PSOS it with CSV files, it takes less than a minute. It's extremely fast on PSOS.
I think the key mostly there is the fact that you're doing CSV instead of an XML-based file, because you're not having to parse the XML. CSV is like the industry standard, and that's why it's so fast. But for what it's worth.
Good little tidbit there.
Cool. All right. Well, Kyle Williams will be around tomorrow. That'll be awesome. I want to thank Bill for coming in today. We're past our allotted time, and I know that we were off in the weeds a couple times on various things, but once again, I want to kind of humanize it a little bit. And Bill's a funny guy, and I'm sure he loves his dogs, and he doesn't torture them more than 30 or 40 minutes every day. So
only by hanging bacon above their cage all day.
Yeah, Christian's got a dog that whenever I go to the office, it's always torturing me to feed it, and so it eats all my hot dogs out of the fridge. So yeah, it's not a good thing. All right, cool. Well, that's it for today, everyone. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Adios.
Bye.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!